Hello, everybody. This is Johan Göransson, Product Manager for OpenCities Planner. Thank you all for joining this live event. Me and my colleague Irma Ali will present a little bit of status update for the migration to the new platform, the changes that you will see when you now are migrated and start using that platform. Differences in user visas, how the new showroom application works from Azure, the data manager tool that you now have access to, and some exciting stuff about the BIM model support that we now have kind of launched a little bit quietly to early adopters, but I want to show some examples of that. And then we'll finally end with tips and tricks and show some cool examples of projects that people have been working on. This environment that we are in right now, the live event of Teams is kind of new to us. So if we mess things up, just bear with us. But we encourage you to ask questions during the presentation, and we'll try to address them as we go, or we'll come back to them after we're done with the presentation. But let's try and keep it interactive, and let's get the most of this session. All right, so just a little status on the upgrading to the Azure, the work we have done there. For those of you who are unfamiliar, we have migrated our legacy hosting platform, which was in Sweden, to globally Microsoft Azure. So we now have OpenCities Planners running in 4 zones: Europe, North America, Australia, and Singapore. And the benefit with the Azure platform is, of course, the better scalability, the better stability, and also better security overall, since it's Microsoft who is responsible for the hosting environment. So out of our legacy users, or our users who are on our legacy platform, we have migrated about 95% already. So most of you should have been involved in a process with the dev team in Luleå to migrate and verify that everything went as planned. And the few of you who are still not migrated, we are hoping that we can get through this this month even. And after you have been migrated, your users who are on the legacy platform will be available in the new platform. Your projects, your backgrounds, those that you selected for the migration should also be available, and all your published URLs that you had on the legacy platform should still work, and they should redirect to the new version. And when a migration has been verified, then the legacy account will be shut down. So let's go over some of the changes. One of the most apparent changes is that there's a different login page. So you go to opencitiesplanner.bentley.com, and the landing page looks different and everything. But then there's some changes in naming and how user roles work. So what used to be called an organization account, which holds all the data and all the projects and all the users, that's now called an instance in this brand new world. And what used to be called info users, and you can invite them with an email, they are now team members or team member users, and they will have to also be added to the instance before they can be invited to a specific project. The offline application has been renamed to Showroom, and we'll talk a little bit more about the changes in that specifically. But one of the biggest changes that license keys for Showroom is they are replaced with the Exhibitor user role. And then finally, maybe the biggest difference is that the data manager tool, which is the content pipeline for reality data, for train data, for connecting to spatial databases and web services, that's included in all subscription types. So that's available to you in Azure.
Okay, so now I take over. Johan, can you verify that my mic works?
Yes, I can hear you.
I'm going to talk about the user visas inside of OpenCities Planner because I noticed from support that this is a question that keeps popping up. I think it maybe confuses the users because the naming has changed. So I thought I would just shortly explain what the differences are. But first, I have to jump to a different screen. And since I'm super new with this will be very successful. No.
We got some inception going here.
You can see my screen website, yeah, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll just log into the last project that I was working on and just show you what the difference with the visas is. So first thing, there are two different types of users. The way that we had it before, they're subdivided into users that are added on an instance level and users that are added on a project level. And in order for you to start working with any user, you have to go first through the instance level. So you first have to add every user in the instance settings. So that's the button right here. Under drop down, you have user management. And here's where you add your users. You start by just selecting an email address, adding it here, and then choosing what type of user you want to make this account. So it can be a team user, the way Yuan explained, that's actually the renamed version of the viewer. So that's the user you want to add to look at the project without having any possibilities of editing anything or deleting anything or removing people from projects or anything. So just somebody who will come and view your project. The next type of user is the creator. And there's a difference between a creator and a creator with admin rights. Creator is basically the same as the editor. So that's somebody that can create a project, edit it, add content, delete content, etc. But if you want to be a creator with admin rights, then that gives you more rights, so to speak. And some of the rights that you get with selecting this option is primarily you have the access to data manager. You also have the ability to add users to the instance. So you cannot add users if you're just a creator. Just somebody who's an admin rights user can add new users to the instance. As a creator with admin rights, you also don't have to be added to a specific project to see it. If you are an admin right, you have by default access to all of the projects that are inside of your instance. So if I was a creator and I clicked on project manager, I would just see the projects that I have been added to. But if I'm a creator with admin rights, if I go here under instance projects, then I can see every project that's inside of the instance, regardless whether I'm added to it or not. Very similar to these two is the exhibitor. So the exhibitor, basically the creator, and the exhibitor with admin right is basically the creator with admin rights. There's just one little small difference, and that is that the exhibitor actually has the ability to log in to Showroom, so our offline version. This is something that Yuan will explain in more detail, but just so that you know. So the creator and the exhibitor are basically the same. It's just that the exhibitor user can also log into Showroom. So sometimes I get questions like, I want to launch Showroom, but I don't see Showroom. I don't know where to download it. So two things. If you don't even see Exhibitor here as an option, it means that it's not enabled for your account. So that has to be changed on our side. Then after that, you will see the Exhibitor option here, and you can change each one of these contacts. So for instance, if I want to change what Adam's rights are, since I'm an instance admin, I can do whatever to each user here. I can click on a user and I can click on manage user. So I can degrade basically Adam to just a team user so that he can't have instance admin rights. Or I can make him an exhibitor, and that way I can make my own account an exhibitor, and that way I have the power to, so to speak, launch Showroom with my user account. So that's a way in which you can edit your existing users if you don't already do that when you're adding them originally. So what happens when you want to launch Showroom? Yuan will explain this in more detail. I'm just going to show you where you can find it inside of inside of the instance settings. So if I go here on the drop-down menu, I will see Showroom here as an option. And when I click on it, I can download the Showroom and then use it on my computer. But if the only reason why I can see this Showroom option here is because I already am an exhibitor. So let me show you. Manage user. As you can see, I already have the option of being an exhibitor, because if I kind of degrade myself to just being a creator, then if I reload this, I don't have Showroom as an option here. So sometimes you might wondering where the icon is. So have that in mind, that you first have to be an exhibitor in order to see the Showroom option at all. So now we talked about what it's like to add a user on an instance level, but what's the difference of adding that to your project? So once you've added any of your users that you want to work with, you have to add them also to a project if they are creators without admin rights. If they're a creator with admin rights, they can just come here and add themselves. So here you will see the list of everybody you can add to a project. You can just click on that user and then invite the user to a project. There's also an admin option here. So if you click on admin here as well, then you give that person admin rights to control the project. What this means is that that person can delete content, that person can publish a project or unpublish a project, and somebody who is not an admin on a project level cannot do that. That person can just add content and delete the content that they have added, but nothing more than that. Except for adding users as editing users to your project, you can also add them as team members or like viewers, as we mentioned before. So here you will have a list of all the users that are basically all the users. So they can be added on an instance level, either as team users or creators or exhibitors, it doesn't matter. But you can choose to invite any one of these inside of a project as a team user. And in that sense, they will just be able to view the project. I think that covers everything in that aspect. So I will just continue this here. Johan, I think you're next.
Yeah, I think you're still sharing the website though.
You don't see the presentation?
I don't.
Oh. Technical difficulties. No?
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
That was easy. Yeah, just to talk a little bit more about the showroom changes that I mentioned. So to use it, just like Irma just showed, you have to be of the user type exhibitor, which has all the rights as the creator, but then also gets the privilege to download and use the showroom application. So this behavior replaces what we previously had with the license key locking. So previously we had a license key that you got from us and you used it on the specific computer that you wanted to run showroom on. And then that license key logged to that device and you couldn't use it on a second device. So with this new behavior, it's a little bit more flexible because you can actually, it doesn't lock to a certain device. It's just that you have to have that user logged in while running the showroom application. So that means that you can, for instance, if you're working with setting up something for a showroom or for an exhibition, you can try that on your local computer. Just download and install Showroom on your computer, log in with the exhibitor user, make sure everything works out the way you expect it and everything looks great. And then when you're done, you would just go to the showroom and then log in with that same creator exhibitor user in that setting on that computer. And then you can kind of log in and run with that user in that showroom scenario. So it's more flexible, but it's not intended to be. It's primarily to help you with this verification, and then just use the same login in the showroom setting. So it's not really intended to run. You cannot, for instance, run on 10 devices simultaneously, because you have to be logged in with one Exhibitor user to run the viewer. Slide, yeah. So in the sync tool, you would log in with the Exhibitor role, and you have the option to keep it logged in. So this is the scenario when you're actually setting it up in a showroom and you want it to run 24 hours for weeks. Then you would use this setting to, let's say, keep it logged in for a month. You type it in the number of days you want to keep it logged in, and then the people in the showroom can just start the viewer, and they don't have to worry about the login at all for these 30 days. There is a default locking mechanism that happen even if you don't select the keep logged in option. So the default lock is 30 minutes, and during this time you cannot log in with that Exhibitor user online or in any other showroom installation. So the viewer requires this behavior. You have to be logged in with an Exhibitor user to run it, but you can set it up so it's logged in for a very long time. So this is what can happen if you try to run an Exhibitor user or log in with an Exhibitor user online when it's actually logged in somewhere else on a showroom installation. You would get this error message that says this user is used somewhere else, and then you have to either wait for it to time out for the 30 minutes to pass or whatever duration you set, or you can run the sync tool and you can click the logout button manually on the device where it's logged in, and then you can log in online again.
Yeah, so that covers showroom. If anyone has any questions at this point, feel free to ask, or we can discuss it at the end of the webinar. So I'm going to talk about Data Manager, and I'm sure you've already heard so much about this, but it's not a bad thing to mention things again. I'm also going to go through the workflows of how a user can set up a background using their Lantmäteriet links or just any WMS or WCS link that you might have. This is going to be a workflow for almost all of our users, so I think it's important that you know how to do it since we cannot set that up for you. Before we go into Data Manager, there's just one thing that I want to cover, and that's the distinction between base and premium subscriptions. So this is inside of our documentation. You can always find it under here as it says Home Data Manager. Just click here on Data Manager and go to Data Types if you want to refresh your memory. But basically the difference here is that base subscription covers everything but connecting to databases and to services. So in order for you to connect to WMS and WS services and create the Lantmäteriet data sets, you have to have premium subscription. So once you get premium subscription, you can also then use CTGML or 3D City database. You can connect to PostGIS, Oracle Spatial, etc. So just have in mind that if you don't see these options in your Data Manager settings, it means that you may not have premium subscription. And in that case, you have to contact whether Dorothea or anybody from our side, and then we'll have a chat about how to enable this for you. Again, I'm going to have to jump through one view, stop sharing, and then launch the website. Okay. So I'm going to jump to Data Manager, but before I do that, just a reminder. So if you are, again, an instance admin, so user that has either Exhibitor with admin rights or Creator with admin rights, in that case, you will be able to see this Data Manager icon, or it will be enabled to you, won't be grayed out. Since I'm an admin, I can click here and then exit or enter all the backgrounds that I have in my instance. So this is how Data Manager looks like. I'll open the help section here just as a reminder that you can, if you get stuck, always read on anything that we covered here, all the types of things or workflows that you can do with Data Manager. And a reminder, we already had a web training on Data Manager and all the tools and all the workflows, so you can always just click here and look at the entire training. I think it's around 1 hour and it kind of covers in a pretty good way everything that you can do in Data Manager. Because I'm not going to do that now. I'm not going to go through all the workflows. I'm just going to show the ones that are important for Lantmäteriet. Just as a overview quickly of how it looks like. These are some shortcuts that you get on the homepage. These are the recent backgrounds that you've been working on. And then you have files, sources, and map data sets. You would usually start by adding any files that you have. This is sources is where you would process all the data that you have, and then you finish up with map data sets, because whatever is in the section of map data set is what you can fetch from the interface, the editor interface. So what ends up here is the material you can use inside of your project. So basically whatever you add or configure has to end with this step. So this time we won't start with files because we're not adding any files. We're not uploading anything to OpenCities Planner. We're just going to connect to a service. So we're just going to start by creating sources. So I'm clicking here on sources and I start by adding a new source. It's important to state two things. So if you're going to create WMS layers, you're going to have to add one source that will represent the image layer and one source that will represent the height data, so the DTM basically. So the images are usually by WMS, and then you will connect to WMS service, but for height data, you will connect to WCS service. It's important for you to know that you have to connect to or connect or create both of these types for this to work. And we'll go through workflows in case you don't have height data or if you don't have images, what are the alternatives? So one more time. So I go to sources, I click on new source and I add a title. I probably already created this. Yeah, let's call this WMS test 2. So I just start by giving it a name. I select the EPSG or the coordinate system in which that WMS layer is. So this one represents entire Sweden, but you have to verify what coordinate system your WMS layer is in and then add that. So I'm going to start, since it's WMS, I'm going to start with terrain imagery reality model because we're going to fetch the images. And I click next. And then here it asks me, how do you want to create this source from what? And I want to create it from WMS. I click next. So here I have to add all the information that is needed for this to connect. So first it says URL. So I'm adding the URL, then the username. And then the password. Then I click load capabilities. So here you have the version. If you're okay with this version, you can just keep it, or you can add a different version if needed. You can invert the axis. These are all the settings that you can change in this interface. Now you start by selecting the layers, and I think this one is important to explain. So if you want to show a map that is more detailed but is not covering entire Sweden, then you should go for this option, 0.16 meters. But if you want to cover entire Sweden but not with the highest quality, then we recommend that you choose this one. So this now depends on what your area or focus is. That's how you should select these settings. So I'm going to choose this one. The image format, I'm going to choose this one by default and then click next. So meter per pixel value, this is if you want to make the resolution even higher. You can read about these, what these settings represent inside of our help section if you want to learn more. Bounding box, by default, I would recommend that you don't add anything here. It will automatically work, but if you want to change the bounding box, this means that if you want to not show entire Sweden, just the area of your interest, you can click expand here and just add the coordinates of the area that you do want to show. And then in that sense, the source will not visualize entire Sweden or all the area that the WMS layer represents, just the area that you want to choose. No data, this means when it comes to images, you can add a color that you don't want to represent. So for instance, if your image has a background color of blue that just doesn't look good to you, and you know exactly what the hex code of that color is, then you can delete that color just by adding that value here. And you can even do like a spectrum of minimum to maximum color and then eliminate everything that's inside that spectrum. Again, you can edit these WMS settings that we showed before just by clicking collapse here. And the last setting here is masking. So if you want to, you can delete information like colors inside of your image, whether by changing or selecting a hex code color that you don't want to represent, or you can just select an area that you want to kind of delete or mask out. So you can do that by adding a polygon that will represent the area that you want to delete. So just if I had a polygon here, I could just click on that feature and then use that as a mask. I can also invert the mask, so I can choose whether to cut inside of that polygon that I selected or outside of that polygon just by using invert. So at the moment, I will keep it default and just see what it looks like. Click next. Okay, I'm done. So I created my first source, and now I need to create the other source, which is going to represent the height data. So I come here, I click WCS. Again, the coordinate system, and this time I don't choose terrain imagery reality models, I choose DTM, so height data. So this now asks me, where do I want to fetch the height data from? I can connect to WCS and use those coordinate systems, those coordinates, or I can select, if I don't have height data, I can select Bing Maps. So I can use the height data from Bing Maps. It's not going to be very accurate, but it's better than nothing. So that's also an option. And if you don't want to have any coordinates, you can just select the floating point value, which actually just represents like a slab that you can add just the height value on from what height does the slab start, and then all your WMS will be just projected onto that flat surface. So if a flat surface is what you want to use, then this is how you create it. But it's kind of mandatory for you to create a source that will represent the height data on top of which the WMS will then project on. So since we do have WCS, I'll click here and click next. Again, I have to add the similar as before the data. So I add the URL. The password, and then I click load capabilities. So similar or exactly the same as we had before, you can select which version you want to run, whether to invert axis or not. There's only one option of height here, and that's on 1 meter. So I'll select that one. I'll select the first option by default, and then I'll click next. This just asks me again about the settings that I mentioned. So if you're going to add a bounding box to your image, then make sure to add the bounding box as well here into your height data. I'm not going to change any of these values. Maybe just explain no data, because it's very similar to no data when it comes to color or images, but since we're now talking about height values, now the no data has to be represented by numbers. So if you have a no date or a value, height value that you don't want to show, for instance, you don't want to represent or show anything that's under 0, then you have to add the maximum value of 0 here and the minimum value where you want to start from. Or you can just add, if you don't want to show anything that's in 0, you can add that value here. So that's how you remove height data as well. So you can either, again, choose no data, or you can mask the height data by using a polygon. So those are the two options. So I'm just going to keep everything as is. I'm going to click next and click OK. So now I have two sources. One is the image, the other is the height. Actually, the opposite. So now I have to create a map data set from that. So I go from sources, I go to map data sets, and I click to create a new map data set. I'm going to call this probably the way I did yesterday, but 2. So again, the coordinate system. This time I can only choose feature or terrain imagery reality model. We're creating a terrain from this, so I'll choose this one. So now it asks me to choose what source do I want to use in this map data set that I'm creating. So I could just use some of the sources that are here in Data Manager by default, but I'm actually going to search here under the sources that I just created. So I have to find WCS2 and WMS2. So these two are the ones that I created under sources. I click next. And then it asks me again about settings, such as the bounding box, if I want to set it on both WMS, WCS on this level, and the visualization settings. So by default, this is the LOD level, so it will define the quality of my terrain. We recommend that you keep this by default, but if you want to change the options, then this is where you would do it. I click next and OK. So when I click on the eye, just to view what I've created, here you can see I have the entire Sweden represented. So as I mentioned, since we went by the 0.5 meter option under WMS, this is not going to be the highest quality and resolution, but it will cover entire Sweden. So if you don't want if you want higher quality, then you should definitely go by the 0.16 meter option. So now I have it in map datasets and I want to use it in my project. I click on Exit Data Manager. I'll create a new project. And then under map datasets, so that's the same name as I had in Data Manager. That was the last step. When I click here, I can search for it, WMS. So this is the one that we created. I click here and then it loads into my project. So what I can do here, first thing is I have to check under settings if the coordinate system is correct. And as you can see, it kind of just copied the one from the previous project. So I have to change this into the correct coordinate system in which the WMS layer is in. I also can add a viewpoint if I don't want to see entire Sweden, but just a specific area. I can add a viewpoint. And the last thing I have to do is under Object Manager, make sure that this is set to public, because I'm probably going to use this if I publish my project. So now what I've done is I've kind of configured this background so that it can be used as a background. So now I just have to save it. It used to be a background option here, but we renamed that under templates, and that's also something we're going to talk about later. I'm just going to save this as a template and show you how you can use it in your projects later. So now I have that changed, and when I start creating a new project, I go under templates and I select the background that I just created with all the settings that are predefined like I did before. And that's everything about WMS and WCS. While I jump to the other screen, are there any questions? I guess not. I guess we can continue.
Yep. I wanted to talk a little bit about the work we have been doing to integrate the Bentley technology, iModel Hub, and the iTwin services. So basically what this means is now we can bring in BIM models into OpenCities Planner directly without conversion to Collada or to KMZ or any lossy format. This content pipeline is non-destructive. You can upload DGN files, Revit files, DVGs, DXF, IFC files directly, or through this content pipeline, at least, that I'm going to discuss. Configure it, and the geometry and the properties are kept in OpenCities Planner. So what we saw here in the short video was a station model in Odenplan. That I think is a Revit file originally. And as you can see, it's brought in, it's georeferenced, it merges seamlessly with the OpenCities Planner content, and you can click on any geometry and it brings up the properties that you want to display from the BIM file. Yeah, so if we go to the next slide. So in order to do that, this is now in the hands of a few selected early adopters, but our goal is to bring this to all our OpenCities Planner premium subscription users shortly. But in order to do that, we have to introduce a few concepts, because this is kind of a one part in a bigger Bentley ecosystem. And one of those components is the Bentley Connect portal, which is a Bentley cloud interface where you can create Connect portal projects. You manage users, you can manage what applications and what privileges users have in this portal and what Bentley applications they have access to. And a Connect project also has the iModel Hub, which is basically like a database that keeps track of BIM models that you upload to it. So it can keep track of changes that has been done on a BIM model. It can keep track on versioning, and it can do a lot of advanced things with the BIM data. The way we use it is we fetch the data, a BIM model that's in the iModel Hub, and then we have an interface in OpenCities Planner that let us access it and use it directly in OCP. But these are just to introduce a few concepts that you will come across when you work with this functionality. So if we go to the next slide. So in the workflow, a user would first start by creating a Connect project, and then create an iModel, which can be a combination of several files. It can maintain states and certain saved views in that iModel, and that will hold the BIM file that we wanna use. So that's created in the Connect portal. And then there's a desktop application called the iTwin Synchronizer, which is used to actually get your local files up to the iModel Hub. And this application supports these file formats, and it's very straightforward to use. You just pick the model that you want to use. You create a version, or you just upload it as is, basically, and then it pushes it to the iModel Hub. In addition to those file formats, if you're also a MicroStation user, there are a vast number of file formats that you can import into MicroStation and then publish or create a DGN from, which you then can import into the iModel Hub. So I'm not going to go over all these file formats, but as you can see, it's very comprehensive. So as a MicroStation user with iModel Hub, you have so many options of files that you can push to OCP with this content pipeline. And just an overview how it works. So all the design and engineering files that you have could be created in MicroStation or Revit, or you get it from an architect or a developer as a DVG, for instance. You would then use the iTwin Synchronizer or the project-wise connections to synchronize it to the iModel Hub. And then you can use files and spatial DBs and all the stuff that you normally can use in OpenCities Planner and put that together in the editor and then push it out to other collaborators in the project. This functionality requires that the users have been invited with at least team member access in the OpenCities Planner project. And just brief video that shows how it works. So you have to have a Bentley user to access it. And this is the editor experience when we set it up. First, we get a list of all the Connect projects that I'm a member of. And in those Connect projects, I can pick the iModel or the iModels that I want to use. I can create a custom configuration from all the models that can be in that iModel, all the categories that can be in that iModel, or I can select one of the save views, which is kind of like a predefined configuration for all the data and everything that's within this iModel or this BIM model. And as you can see, it blends right in. This is again the Odenplan model. And then I can configure if I want to show properties when a user clicks on a geometry or not. And I also have options that lets me exclude or pick the attributes that I want to display in this environment. So I can remove things that I feel is unnecessary to show or sensitive, and then configure that. And the geometry from the original BIM file is completely maintained. There's a streaming technology that it ensures great performance even on very complex BIM models. And again, this last part here just shows that you can configure what you want to see from the BIM model. Maybe you just want to show the exterior, or you want to focus on a very specific category in the BIM model, so you can do that configuration. So again, this is we're very excited about this functionality. We are bringing it out to selected pilot users right now. If you are excited about the functionality and you think it would bring value to both the urban planning visualizations that you do, or if you have another department within your organization, your city, that would really benefit from this functionality, we would love to hear from you and see if we can get you going with testing out this functionality as well. So just ping any one of us if you're interested in exploring this feature more.
Okay, I think now it's time to jump to the last section. It's going to be some tips and tricks. We're going to talk about templates like I did slightly a bit before, and multi-select. Simply because these are not new features in OCP, but I've been getting questions about them, and I realized that maybe our users are struggling with how to use them. So I thought it would be good to kind of go through them and explain what you can do. And then as a last thing, we'll just go through some projects and see some interesting things that could maybe help our users out with their new projects. So we start by templates. I start here by showing, let me see if, so I have a project that I already have created. It has specific layers, groups, behaviors inside of those layers. I have a few viewpoints that I have configured. I have my backgrounds, I have my styles, my font that I've chosen for it, points of interest. I have a form builder. I have project information added to it. So a lot of content that I might want to reuse again in a different project. So instead of recreating everything, I can just create a template from it. So I'll just rename this as a template. So I want to save as template, and I save this project as a template. So this basically acts like the background used to do before. So now under templates, I have my new template that I can use for any other project. So here I start from scratch. I have nothing. And I'm going to start by just copying the project that I already did from before. So here when I click on template, I have the option to choose what kind of content I want to import. I don't have to import everything. I can just import the background or just the interface or just the viewpoints if I just want to paste the viewpoints. I have the option to choose that. But I selected everything, and then just by clicking on next, I literally copied the entire project again. So I think this is very useful for all of our users that have any kind of content they're going to reuse multiple times. And again, this doesn't have to be the groups and the layers. It could be just that your interface has already been predefined in some project. You can save that project as a template and just fetch the interface into your other project. That would also work. So now I save this one as a project. So this is not going to be a template. I give it a name and I click Save Project. So I didn't go to Save as Template. That's the difference. So how do I fetch my templates? If I go here under drop-down menu, there's a template option. I can click on it and then open a project, open a template basically. And now I can edit that template and change anything that I don't want to be a part of this template in the future. So if I want to change the logo or the font or remove any viewpoints or groups, I can edit that from here. So now when I click save here, it's not still going to be saved as a project. It's just going to update my template for the next time that I want to use it. So that's everything on templates. Another thing that I wanted to cover was multi-select. So we have a multi-select option from before, but I noticed that not all of our users know how to use it. So we're just going to quickly go over how it works. So where is multi-select? It's a part of interactions. So if you want to delete or hide any element inside of your interface, before you would have to click on each object single-handedly and then add them to an interaction. But now if you, for instance, click on something and hit Control, you can add anything to the previously selected object. If you click on Alt, you can remove anything that you click on. But most importantly, you can select multiple things at once just by hitting Shift. So everything that is inside of this rectangle is selected. I can click Shift and Control and to just keep adding multiple objects at once. Or I can do the opposite. I could just hit Shift and Alt and just remove multiple objects at once. So we think this is super useful for our users that are working with any kind of database, CityGML, for instance. So if you want to hide multiple objects, these are the shortcuts that will help you. So this was just quickly on that. The last part before we end the session, I'm just gonna show you a few examples of projects. And again, I have to now shift from this view to the website. Just a second. So the purpose of us showing you this is we've noticed that most of our users are using reality mesh models or LOD2 representations of buildings with textures, whether it's CityGML or any other kind of database. But we just wanted to show you that there are other options in what you can visualize. So we're just showing you probably some kind of content that might inspire you in the future. So this project visualizes an image in the background that could be an image from a master plan or a detailed plan that then loads the vegetation as various 3D models that have been kind of randomly scattered around, or they could be exactly the vegetation that they do represent. And there are buildings that are very simple white LOD2 objects on top of a background that represents what each area shows. It's super simple. It looks kind of almost like a game, but we on our side thought that it looks pretty good and pretty comprehensive and simple to the end user. So we just wanted to show you this kind of project as an option, and hopefully inspire you to kind of branch out from the types of projects that we've seen so far.
Yeah, because just to add to that, so this is courtesy of Linköping in Sweden. If you want to, you can contact them and learn more how they set it up. I think that the buildings are all stored in a database, so they're easy to update and manage. I think the imagery comes from a WMS, so that's also, you know, easy to update. And what we usually show these 3D models that are textured and they have reality models, and it's easy. Sometimes you kind of forget that OCP can display other types. It's just up to you, the data types you want to display and what makes sense for your use case. So just to add that.
Yes, exactly. And a very similar example to that is this project that basically uses the same data set, but it's a different approach, so to speak, to an OCP project. So it doesn't have to necessarily always be something that has a lot of groups and layers and viewpoints and form builder and etc. It could be just a simple model that almost looks like those 3D models that architects used to create and still do create, but it just represents one section of what you want to visualize. And in some cases, maybe for urban developers, this makes sense even more than creating a vast, huge project. So we haven't seen this as a use case so much in OpenCities Planner, but maybe we thought it could be because our users didn't think that this was also something that could work. And of course, the benefit of this is that except that it focuses on a small area, it also is the performance of it is way better because you don't have to load a lot of content at the same time. So this is just also an option to have in mind when you're creating projects. A different project comes from Karlstad. I don't know if Johan made it to the meeting, but he helped us he gave us permission to show his work. And again, it's a bit different from what we've seen so far. It's we're not going to show any reality mesh models or any CTGML data or anything like we've shown before, just to branch out a bit with different examples. I think I'm overloading my laptop, so I'll just close a few things. I guess we can jump to Kristianstad while this loads. So again, a different approach, a project that was created by representing just an image as a background that could be added from WMS, and in this context it is. And then when you zoom out, you see buildings that are visually a bit different from what we usually see. So you can see that the roofs have a different color. They also have 3D models of trees, and it just looks, again, kind of like a game, and looks a bit more user-friendly or fun. We thought it might also be interesting for the end user to kind of see a completely different experience. So just to inspire you again with a different approach to what your project can look like. And last, I don't know why this is not working. Here it goes. So again, this is from Karlstad. Johan did a very different, again, design approach to the project. We liked very much what we did with the lines. I think I saw Matthias from Järfälla do a similar thing. And I don't know, this could be just a me thing, but I think that this kind of adding a bit more layers to your project makes it a bit more interesting to look at. So, I mean, in general, I liked a lot the image that was underneath. So it was nothing realistic or gray. It was more comprehensive and interesting to look at. As a side note, I would like to end by explaining how you can do this, because I don't know if all of our users know how to enter these lines. So I'm just going to quickly show you in SketchUp how you can achieve this effect. And you are probably not seeing my SketchUp window, right?
We are not.
Oh, just a second.
But we have great imagination.
It's a good start, but let's do it right. Okay, so SketchUp, I'll just show you how to do this with a simple volume. So if you have subdivided this volume, I don't know, by 10 times. So you have the lines that represent the stories or whatever you want it to represent. And you want to show these lines when you import it in OpenCities Planner. You can just go to Export Settings, 3D Model. And whether it's, I think it works with Collada. I'm not sure about KMZ. You go under Options and you just select Export Edges. And then it will export the lines as well when you import it to OCP. But just so that I make sure, I don't know if it... Okay, so it's just with Collada. And now, again, I have to go back to the presentation. I'm not a fan of this platform, I have to say. I think that's it, right, Johan?
I think so.
Now we can ask for questions if there are any.
So we had a few questions in the chat. So do you record these presentations? Yes. Dora will make it available later. One question is how many team users one account can create, and that's unlimited, but you buy the team users per user, so to speak, and then you add them to your instance. But they can be unlimited. And then one question, if one project only can publish a single iModel, or if you can import Collada 3D models and then have an iModel in another layer. And basically, yes, iModels, they almost behave just like any other object in OpenCities Planner, I would say. When you create them, they become an object in Object Manager, and you can reorganize them. You can move them to a layer. You can have several iModels in the same project. You can have an iModel in a layer that also has a Collada file or point of interest or shape file or whatever. The only limitation today is that you cannot display two iModels at the same time. So you can have two iModels in the same project, but they cannot be displayed at the same time currently. That's something that we're trying to fix, obviously. But other than that, they pretty much behave as any other object, and you can use them with any content that you want. Question on importing or seeing attributes from Ifc models. Yes, the attributes would be kept through the iModel Hub content pipeline, and on click we could display them, and that's basically the extent to what we do with the attributes today. We bring them up when you click an element, but currently there's no searching or anything like that on the attributes yet. But they are maintained in the model and can be used to a degree today. And then we kind of are interested to hear from the users how that functionality should evolve. So comment here, it would be nice to add a folder structure into Data Manager. Yes, we agree, I would say. We see that especially for users who have been using it quite a bit, there can be lots of entries in that table, and currently it can be a little bit unstructured, so that's something that I think we will look into to improve. Okay, are there any more questions? If not, you can always contact us directly, either through the support form in OpenCities Planner, or I'm sure you have Irma's or mine contact information. So feel free to reach out, and we're also interested in hearing if you think that this format was good, if we talked about the right things, and the things that you would like to hear about in upcoming webinars. Okay, thank you all for attending, for joining. Hope to see you again soon, perhaps even in the real world. That would be awesome.
Soon.
Okay. Thank you all. Bye bye.
Thanks everyone. Bye bye.